Recording?
We are recording.
All right, I'm going to start the broadcast right now.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're coming from. I'm Bob Galen. I'm your host today for, and Matt's probably going to correct me, Cero, Cien. So I think this is 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 or something. Building successful distributed agile teams. He will correct me in a second.
Yes, 0 to 100 in kilometers is 0 to 60 in miles per hour. So.
All right, so I blew that. If you could flip to the next slide, Matt. All right, fantastic. Velocity Partners is your host today. We're a nearshore distributed provider of agile teams. Next slide. Just a little bit more about us. We believe in better business through better software. Our headquarters is in Seattle. We have a nearshore distributed agile team model. We have multiple offices in Argentina, office in Uruguay, and our most recent office is in Medellin, Colombia. Those locations align really well with North American time zones, thus the nearshore label. We have highly collaborative agile development. We really pride ourselves in getting agile and agile methods and agile practices in our DNA at the team level. So when our clients engage us, they're really engaging a very deeply experienced agile partner as well as technically proficient team members. The final point on the slide is our people really make the difference. We treat our people well. We have incredibly low attrition. Along with good agile practices, actually, it's just your people are your number one priority. So we treat our people well. We hire the best. We attract the best. And then we bring those wonderful teams and we complement them with our clients, and we just produce great software and from an agile point of view. So we're really proud of our teams and our agile mindset and our clients and how we collaborate together, how we partner together. Just a few housekeeping items. If you're having any technical issues, please send a message and I'll try to resolve them for you. You can send those messages in notes and go to webinar. Questions are encouraged along the way. Please type your questions into the question box. I'll be moderating the questions. I'll be looking for questions that might be relevant right away, and if I find them, I'll interrupt Matt. Otherwise, we'll queue them to the end. So we're going to take questions along the way, and then we'll have a small Q&A box at the end. But we'll try to address some questions. We want to make it as interactive as we can be along the way. The presentation deck and the recording will be made available. We'll give you an email address at the end of the webinar to reach out, and we'll follow up with some email with content, so you'll get the content for further review in the future. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Phillips. He's an Agile coach, Scrum Master, formal title of Director of Project Management at a local company, local to me here in North Carolina, Appia. He has 15 years of overall project management experience. He's adept at building great teams and is a change agent, and I know that personally. I've talked to Matt, and he really is. He's passionate about agile methods. He's passionate about distributed teams, and he's passionate about not being static in our approaches and really not accepting the status quo, not changing for its own sake, but appropriate change driven from a team level. He's a certified Scrum Master, and he believes the right team, the right tools, and the right process can be a game changer and just kick butt in the world. So without further ado, I want to introduce and give the baton over to Matt Phillips. Matt?
Hey, thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right, so thanks for the nice introduction. I've built and managed teams in India, Costa Rica, Ukraine, Colombia, and over the course of my career, a lot of times the distributed teams were not a success. And when we started building out a new team last fall, I reflected on this and sort of realized that a lot of times in those failed cases, we didn't know what success looked like. So if you look at the comic on the screen, you have the general sense of people sort of riding through the woods, being aware of changes or being aware of obstacles, kind of ignoring them, and then sort of that, the punchline of, I'm not sure I can stand so much bliss, and hey, we don't want to learn anything from this. So when we set out to build a new team last fall, the goal was to not end up like Calvin and Hobbes there. And so we took an agile approach and said, hey, if you start with a vision of success and then build a roadmap, it'll be a lot easier for us to get there. And we used agile principles and values as the building blocks. So if you look at the photo here, imagine building a road across this archipelago without an aerial view. I mean, you might get to where you need to go, but probably in a more wasteful way. But by having the vision and making a roadmap before you try to cross, all of these sort of metaphorical islands, you're going to get better results and much less waste. So the foundation for this approach is basically using agile principles and values as your pillars. So if you've done any sort of Scrum Master training, you have your agile values on the left, and the principles are sort of how you achieve the values. These points are going to be pointed out throughout the entire presentation. You'll see them a lot of times. And the metaphorical reference I'd like to make here, this is Chenakesava Temple in Vellore, India, and it took 103 years for them to build. This photo here is just sort of the back lot behind the temple, sort of like you think of like the storage space. And I had an opportunity to visit there, and I asked the guide, what was up with all these columns back here? And they told the story that, hey, as part of the architecture and part of the vision for the temple, the columns were very important to them. And they wanted to make sure that they had extras in case some would break over time. So you can imagine this was built in 1117 AD, 103-year project, and still taking the time to have the columns and the pillars because it's an important part of your overall vision. So if you have the columns, you have your pillars, you're using agile principles and values, you now have what you need to either let it grow or let it go. If you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to get there. You can prevent stagnation. You don't want to get sort of water a dying plant slowly. You either grow it or you stop it. Hanging in limbo with team development on unsuccessful teams, it creates waste. It affects morale. It affects outputs. It's not a good place to be. So you want to either get it going, get it working, or gracefully get out of the situation. And this is really sort of looked at in 3 phases. So step 1, this is your pre-flight checklist. What do you do before you get started? What kind of questions do you need to address? In Scrum terms, you could call this a sprint 0. And then you need to understand, why are you doing this? So really reflecting on the justification or the motivation for why you're setting up a distributed team is a great way to start. You can see a list of possible reasons that you may want to do something. Choosing what your distinctive competence is, that is the thing that your company does very, very well, and augmenting folks to help you either offload that work or improve that work is a good approach. I would caution anybody to beware of generic arguments. Don't get involved in a distributed team because you heard it was a good thing, or hey, I think we can save some money. The purpose is really to leverage the opportunities that are present. Maybe for us at Appia, we were recently acquired by another company, and we are at some point somebody's going to be a distributed team. So you may even sort of find yourself in situations which arise, and how can you leverage those and be successful? So you can start to see the pillars, or sorry, the values and principles showing. All right, so knowing what success looks like. For us, we wanted to build a team that was considered just like any other local team. Very important for us is for them to be what we call independent owners and operators. So giving them a chunk of the roadmap, wholly owning features, building out software as independent as possible. We spent a lot of time with what we called an experiment template, where we sat down with key stakeholders and we brainstormed what the indications of success and failure would look like, and we set an initial 90-day sort of timeline, checking in once a month, looking at, hey, are we successful? How's it going? Or hey, what is a challenge? and what are corrective strategies we can do to recover, and what are the things that they're going really, really well, how can we amplify that and make it even better. All right, so getting there. The partner selection funnel process is really important. Understanding who you're going to work with, it's not something to be taken lightly, and you don't want to spend a few minutes on it. Creating a scorecard, or sort of understanding all your different partner options, researching them, doing video interviews, video conferences, visiting sites and meeting the people, getting to know them is really helpful. For us, we spent some time looking at Ukraine, Costa Rica, South America. We did scorecard, did research, did interviews, and basically narrowed it down to South America and visited Peru, Colombia, and Uruguay. One of the main focuses of this phase 2 is preempting any concerns you have. How are the day-to-day operations? What's the communication and the infrastructure and the legal stuff? One of my first experiences with a distributed team, we partnered with somebody they were in India, and their job was to test mobile code that we did on devices. So the vision was engineering teams build it, and we ship it off to India. They're going to validate the stuff on mobile devices, give us the feedback, and then we'll pick up the cycle sort of the next day. We got all the way through the contracts, signed the partner, hired, got ready to go, started trying to do this, and then realized that because of either connectivity issues or legal issues, a lot of the mobile devices that we were using or wanted to use were not available or even allowed to be in India. So then we found ourselves with a grand plan of having a testing offshore, and that turned into something that we ended up having to test ourselves, or having the people sort of respond back with, hey, we think it's working now, can you verify it, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding the concerns and the needs before you get too far down the road is what time well spent. Also understanding irrefutable cultural norms. And what I mean by irrefutable is these things are happening whether you're aware of them or not. And two sort of anecdotes I'll give you. One is the word ahora in Spanish means now, and the word ya in Spanish also means now. But what we came to learn is that ya means yes, I'm doing this right now, immediately, this is happening. Where ahora is sort of this any time in the next 4 hours, half of the day. So if somebody says, hey, I'm coming over ahora, you could expect them maybe by the end of the day. They're coming over ya, you can expect it right that minute. So, in stand-ups or you're kind of having meetings, understanding the difference between the concepts, it helps you with timelines and helps you with sort of the understanding cultural norms. There's also a concept in India called a jugad, which is basically a mindset of building or creating something with whatever tools or devices you may have on hand. So, for example, you may see down the street a telephone pole, maybe a tree, and then a telephone pole, and you will see that, hey, the cables are wrapped around the tree, and they go to the next pole because the tree was there. It was very, very practical. Or if you're repairing a car, you could do a new part, but if you could do some sort of bent metal piece or something like that to fix it, it is a sort of a cultural thing that's so pervasive that a lot of times people don't even know they're doing it, and it's a really fascinating concept. So what happens, is theoretically, if you're trying to get a team to build something and you've given them a 100-piece jigsaw puzzle with only 97 pieces, the concept of jugad, the team is not even aware that they're missing pieces. They think that, hey, this must be 97 pieces, this must be what we have to work with, and we're going to deal with that. So understanding those things, and that's what I mean irrefutable, that those concepts are going to happen, and learning new concepts when you're dealing with people all over the world is, first of all, it's really interesting, but secondly, it helps you build good software. So once you have your partner selected and you're sort of getting ramped up, you're down to your people, places, and things. This is sort of the rubber hitting the road of your team building. The concept that we talked at the beginning, Cero Cien, is basically 0 to 100 in kilometers. So this is, in English we would say, going 0 to 60. And this is the part where you're accelerating. So as far as people goes, I really, really recommend hiring as you would locally. For us at Appia, we do a tech test, we do interviews. So as part of a partner selection process, we want to make sure that that the people you're hiring also do the same interview and tech test process. And what that means is that you have standards, and it shows respect both to the teams locally and the distributed teams as far as how everybody's on the same playing field, and you have the cross-team respect, and you know that everybody can do the job. I had an opportunity to sit through a story planning session down in Uruguay with some potential clients, and after the hour, I asked the question to the team in the room, have you guys ever met the product owner that was just talking? The product owner was in South Carolina, I believe. And they had said, no, they had never met this person face-to-face. And it was very, very clear to me by the formal contractual language and the sort of how they interacted that they didn't really know that well, and I don't think they were really sort of sharing as much as they could be sharing. So for us, getting to know styles, personalities, methods, what's the best way to talk to a person? Are they always available on an instant message client, or are they really, really busy, and is it best to send them an email, wait for a response? Understanding, sort of meeting in person ASAP, getting to know people is really valuable. For us, too, the points of contact. So we use a Scrum Master as the go-to person. So, hey, we're getting ramped up. If you have any questions, talk to the Scrum Master. And then what we call sort of rerouting the water. We've been taught people who had questions or were trying to interact with different offices who the right person was, what the right job responsibility was. And that way, we had the accountability right away with a single point of contact, but then we also sort of taught and coached and distributed the communication channels. Another key role for us that we found really successful is the concept of a tech liaison. And we used an engineering manager with some architecture experience, and we give them the job of making sure that the code, the design decisions, the design patterns matched between offices. So it didn't have to be just like ours in Durham. The liaison could sort of take the best approach and fold that into our core architecture to make sure that we had standards and make sure that we were sharing knowledge across both teams. All right, so another part of this is like we did the people, and it's the places. So getting out of the building, interacting person to person, and phoning home. So when we set up this project, we set up a plan to travel every other month. Every other month, 2 to 3 people were either coming up from South America or were going down to South America. And the more people get to know who they are and who each other is and how they interact, the quickly they start really behaving as a team. You're going to get better feedback about what's not working, about challenges and problems when you're sort of talking amongst a friendly relationship as opposed to sort of a distant relationship. Phoning home for us, it was really important to sit down in Colombia and try to work there for a week and learn what it's like to work with us when we're not in the building. Something as simple as walking around the corner and asking a DBA a question is a challenge when you're sitting a couple thousand miles away and you're trying to find them online, or perhaps a hallway conversation happens, something around the coffee maker or the water cooler, a decision was made, and how does that decision make its way to distributed teams? Understanding that stuff so you can kind of take those impediments and address them is really valuable for empathy and also for simplifying the workflows. Understanding how things are done here and there. For us at Appia, we believe in something we call Beer Friday, and the concept is that you want people from all disciplines of your business getting together socially, informally, and sharing their experiences of work. And you want that golden moment of some sales guy saying, if I only had this widget, I'd make us $1 million. And you want the engineer to say, hey, I can do that widget. And you can sort of surface those opportunities. It's really an important part of our thing, most for the collaboration, for the ideas, and for the team bonding. So when we set up a remote team, our idea was that the team there should also kind of do the Beer Friday thing. And it took us probably 3 to 4 conversations with HR down and on the distributed team down at Velocity that, hey, this is okay. We want them to be leaving at 4 and hanging out in some fashion, whether it's getting coffee or getting a snack, but it is, we're paying for this moment because of our, basically our cultural norms of what we wanted to do, but also like the challenge was convincing somebody who had different cultural norms that this was okay and it wasn't sort of a crazy notion for us. Another idea of inclusion and communication is not to say they. Using the third-party references, when we first started off, we would have challenges with product owners saying, hey, do they know how to do this? And you're on a video call and they're standing right there and you sort of had to coach and say, look, why don't you ask them? You're looking them in the face. So getting that whole concept and really challenging if you have 4 teams and somebody mentions 3 teams, you have to remind them, no, 4, remember this other team, and including people so that everybody is aware that we have a big group of people. They just sit in different places. So for us, our main goal as a team is a team, and we want every team to succeed. And so if we started off with that, you want to get the challenges surfaced early. You want to find the conflicts. You want to hurry up and start addressing them. So solving for feedback loops in real-time communication. If you believe that any team is a team and they're sitting in a different place, you want to basically hurry up and make it work, or hurry up and make it fail and address it. For us, some very key points. One is our definition of done. We have a definition of done. It's a printed card that sits on every software engineer's desk. When we hired distributed folks, we gave them cards with a definition of done. And for us, a story is done when it's code reviewed, it's unit tested, it's been added to our automated regression testing suite. Test cases, any test cases have been updated. QA has either tested the feature or opted out of testing the feature. Any kind of DB and SA tasks for the story are captured. We have fixed versions and releases attached to the piece of software so we know when it's shipping. And then there's no critical or important sonar metrics. That is basically our contract for how everybody does work. And what that does is it ensures accountability for everybody across the organization. And it also helps, especially for distributed teams, knowing that it's not about just meeting a deadline. It's about doing high-quality stuff that can change over time. And it gives folks a contract and it gives them some guidelines to know that it's okay to take a little extra time to do things right. As far as tools for us, video is crucial to having any kind of distributed teams. Phone or Skype just doesn't work well enough. You want to get context. You could have a daily stand-up, and if somebody says, hey, that's a great idea, but you see their body language kind of shift, you can kind of maybe sort of dig in a little bit more and see if there's any challenges or concerns. I had once worked with a team that I never laid eyes on. This is one of my first nearshoring or offshoring jobs with India. I never laid eyes on the people I was working with. I had no idea who they were. I had no sense of personal connection, and I think that probably that project suffered for that. Also, when we were visiting potential nearshore customers down in South America, all of them had really good cameras and audio, and they look sort of like radio stations. So you start thinking, if they all have this stuff, why don't we? For us, the broken Polycom in the conference room wasn't good enough. And so another, probably one of the most important concepts that we surface is you cannot lead from the second chair. If anybody has played in bands, jazz bands, orchestras, you have a sense of chairs, who's sort of the first flute or the first saxophone, and everybody else's job is to sort of play along with that person, and that's how the group stays together. There's a mantra of not leading from the second chair, which basically means even if the first chair is kind of off, it's your job to stay with them so the section stays together. It's not your job to play on or play it better, because then you basically create a discordance within the whole group. So a distributed team is only going to be as good as the level of commitment that the sort of quote-unquote home office has. So if you're mildly interested in this, this project being successful, or just hoping it's going to sort of solve itself, or just you wind it up and let it go, you're not going to get an outperformance from your level of engagement. So you, as the home office, have to be fully committed, fully engaged in feedback and in the success of the project. So now once you've sort of selected a partner and you've gone 0 to 60, you're up and running, you've got to maintain and you've got to build upon your successes. I love the quote from William Burroughs: "When you stop growing, you start dying." And to me too, it's not growing at all, or staying the same is equal to dying. So now you've started. Now what? So creating a shared vision of, why are we doing this? What are we doing? What are we building? Everybody knowing the big picture is also important. You want to be able to have teams sitting in different places that can make the right decision for the business because they know the direction of the business and they know the context and they can sort of operate independently. For us, we have all of our distributed team folks do the new hire training. They come in and they get the overviews from our product teams and the marketing teams. They join all of our all-hands meetings. Any kind of meeting that you would have other engineering folks in, we bring them in. Participating in engineering meetings, you want to avoid isolation. You want to get the knowledge and the input and the value from the distributed team into the mix, and you want to feed it back out. We also do really, really lean story writing. The idea is that we want the product owner to put forth a problem and put forth the acceptance criteria of how they know that problem is going to be solved, and then let the teams talk. Let them hash it out. So we have what we call a delivery team conversation when we start every story. You get everybody that's involved in the story together. Maybe it's engineers, QA, product owner. Maybe there's a stakeholder like an accountant or account manager. Maybe there's an operations person. You all talk about the expectations of the story. You hash out any kind of details, and then you go build it. And then it comes back for acceptance, and you're reviewing what you had agreed on in the delivery team meeting, and you're looking at the overall acceptance of the feature. And what this does is it prevents sort of the game of telephone. If you write a really, really detailed spec and you're slightly off, and somebody goes in a remote context for a couple of days and builds something, before you know it, even being 1 degree off, 2 days later, you can be pretty far from your vision. So by having the story is very, very lean, and the story being the concept of a promise for a conversation, you end up hashing out things collaboratively, making sure you get what you want, and you're also getting good ideas from the team instead of them just doing exactly what you're asking. We talked about tech liaisons earlier, but we also have a concept of module owners. We ship about 9 different software applications, and each one of those has a module owner, and their job is to understand all of the code that is going into the module. They're helping with code reviews. They're ensuring there's consistency in the code and the design patterns, etc. And they're also sort of helping to reduce the friction and the waste. And one thing that's great is you want your distributed team to be contributing to the modules, and you want to be taking those good ideas and folding them into your roadmap so you're getting better value from your overall engineering team, regardless of where they sit. One of the key learnings that we learned that I would do differently next time is we sort of turn the fire hose on when we're onboarding to try to give as much information as possible as soon as possible. And when we reflected on this at the end, if you're hiring a distributed team who's basically even possibly starting a new job for their company, I mean, they have all kinds of onboarding and HR and this kind of things to learn at their own office, let alone trying to learn a new project with new people, etc. So I would probably stagger the learnings or stagger some of the onboarding stuff to give people time to understand and absorb the information. We did do the sort of that fire hose approach mistakenly, and then 4 months later we sort of did the same product overviews, and the second time around it resonated so much stronger because folks had learned some of our systems, some of our jargon. They knew the product well enough to sort of have some context and some relevant thoughts compared to sort of day one trying to absorb a PowerPoint of 20 sort of concepts and schemes. All right, so at the end of the day, you want to trust that a team is a team, everybody wants to do well. You do need to verify it. You can't trust blindly. But you really want to do is just bridge gaps, act successful, find the successes and the gains, and solve the challenges and have those crucial conversations. one of the things that was really successful for us is, we let the teams make their own commitments. So you do a sprint plan, the team commits to getting the work done, and it's their job to get 100% of it done by the end of the sprint. And what we found sometimes when the teams overcommitted is that they were spending nights and weekends working to meet their commitment. The sort of the nice part of this, or the really cool part of this, is that they were not billing any overtime. They weren't charging by the hour. They took it upon themselves because they had set their goals and made their promises to get their work done. So what you have is a team in charge of their own destiny, really working to meet those goals. Obviously, you retrospect on, hey, why was this sprint so hard, and what can we do to make it better next time? But it was not a sort of a contractual charging overtime type situation. It's really, really nice. The team is in charge of what they need to do, and they're getting it done, and they're happy to do it. So feedback loops, you always want feedback and coaching opportunities whenever you can get them. There's tons of daily applications, the delivery team meetings when you're starting stories, any kind of code reviews, your daily stand-ups, living the daily burn downs. We put our daily burn down, the sprint burn down, up every day. How is it trending? How are we doing? And sort of working through those things. We had a really good mantra, which is using HipChat, which is an instant messaging tool. HipChat for questions, Google Hangouts for decisions, so video calls, and emails for summaries. So not trying to hash discussions out completely via email chain, getting online. We use a lot of Google Hangouts. If you set a Google Hangout for a date far in the future, then that Hangout is live up until that point. So you can just jump into a virtual team room whenever you need to have a conversation, and you can have a real-time conversation face-to-face, and it works really, really nice. All of our Scrum ceremonies are great touch points. We do any kind of story planning. The team's involved with the product owner. We're demoing to the stakeholder, so you have your distributed teams demo what they built to your local team. It's a good way for the company as a whole to see the value you're getting from a distributed team. It's also a good way for people to sort of interact and share the successes. For us, also retrospectives, letting the team control their own success. So helping surface what was a really challenging thing for the team, and how do you address that, and how do you build the personal relationships so the team is comfortable surfacing some of those challenges and feeding them back. And once they have, how can you work within your business to make it better for distributed teams? We touched a little bit previously on lacking the product overviews as demos, so we didn't do a great job of the product overviews or demoing the stuff at the right time in the onboarding process. Another thing is we talked about how we set a budget for travel every other month. Next time I will front load all of that travel and get everybody to meet everybody as soon as possible, even if it takes a couple months to sort of get back on the budgeted rhythm. But every time we had a team come up here or somebody go down and visit, you got so much more collaboration and human connection that it really helped the projects get smoother. So that's really, really valuable, and we probably spent a month or two too long just getting everybody to know each other. So I would front load that and then maintain a regular rhythm once the project is further into the life cycle. All right, and so this is the secret formula to how to make everything work. Actually, I don't know if anybody recognizes this formula, but it's a formula for the energy loss in pipe fittings due to friction. So if you put two pipes together and there's a fitting, there's enough of an energy loss there, whether it's flow of water or whatever, that there's an actual formula to calculate this. So if you're laying long sections of pipe, you understand how much energy or flow you're going to lose by the time you get to the end of it. So if you take that as a metaphor and say, hey, if you have two teams, what we're all trying to do is make this pipe fitting have the least amount of energy loss due to friction. So you can kind of distill it down. If you want success, being agile and combining your vision and your desire into one sort of formula, that's how you join the teams. That's how you couple the pipes. another thing is you have to have the courage to let it go. If you've done relentless feedback loops and you realize that something is not working, you do not want to slowly water the dying plant. In one of my previous experiences, I ran a couple engineering teams in India, and we were just having a lot of challenges, and it finally came down to the fact that nobody from our product team had ever visited the team. We were not capable of getting requirements or ideas communicated back out to the remote team. And so at the end of the day, the home team was not mature enough or not capable enough to have a distributed team. So we ended up having to close the project down. And it was not because of the distributed team. It was because the local team did not have the right process or the right things in place. But we had to have the courage to let it go. Say, this is not working. It's wasteful, and stopping it. All right, so now what can you do about it? Taking the first step. If you are working with a distributed team, what does your success look like? Have you defined that? How can you leverage agility and agile concepts to make it better? If you're not working with a distributed team, can you think of reasons why an additional team could be beneficial to your business? For example, if you're doing iOS development, the mecca of the world for iOS development seems to be San Francisco, California. Does it make more sense to set up a distributed team of iOS developers there as opposed to trying to hire them locally? There's many opportunities you can leverage there, and also leveraging your distinctive competence. And by the end of it, you have a new tool in the toolbox, right? You can find additional talent pools. You can offload HR staffing, sourcing, and hiring. For us, that hiring and staffing is not our strong point. We wanted, to find good people, but we did not have the infrastructure to do it. Partnering with Velocity made it very, very easy to sort of offload that expertise to Velocity, and us allowing us to focus on what we're good at, which is building software for mobile advertising. Getting proximity to time zone alignment. If your customer sits in Australia, maybe you should put up a support team beside them in Australia instead of having to chase the sun or do it 12-hour time zones. Scaling with mergers, acquisitions, and expansions. That's something that we'll be dealing with over the next couple months. It'll be a very exciting opportunity, and I will use this formula to build good teams. I did put cost savings in here. You can create a cost savings, but again, that should be sort of think of that as a healthy byproduct as opposed to something that you want to go in. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times you get what you pay for. And if you want quality and you want good partnerships, a lot of times it could be challenging to find that at a huge cost savings kind of price. The photos here, this is that same Chenakasava temple. These are all the different columns, and this is sort of how this thing looks from a holistic point of view. It's been standing for, about 900 years. So now you know what the next actions are and what they should look like. You can set the path and follow it together. So one of the cool things is once you sort of build one group of people, you get the camaraderie and you get the teamwork, and it doesn't matter where people sit. This picture here is El Peñol in Guatapé, and the stairs are as terrifying as they appear. But we went down and visited, and this team gave us their Saturday. They brought their wives or girlfriends, whatever, and they took us out to a place that I would never have had an experience to go to by myself. And getting that sense of sharing and learning and building one group it's something that's valuable. You have people that are really willing to work hard for the business and for common goals. I started studying Spanish as part of this effort, and at one point, they came to me and said, "Hey, we're so impressed or so honored or flattered that you would bother to try to learn Spanish. We think you should start practicing Spanish by speaking Spanish in meetings and in the daily stand-ups." And my first reaction was, "Hey, our 20-minute meeting is going to go to 40 minutes," and that they were okay with that, sort of in concept or in theory, because they wanted to share the experience and they wanted to help me learn and help me want to do something because it was something that was culturally relevant to them as well. So great experience all in all, and you can build teams. If you're just really debating where somebody sits, where's your chair, and how do you reroute communication and everything else, just so you have one group. All right, that is the end of sort of the prepared portion of the stuff. I'm ready to, if there's any kind of questions, Bob, that I can field.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. I enjoyed it. I've heard this again, and I learned some things So more stuff this time. So everyone, I've been pinging you for questions. We're going to wait just a minute or two and see if any questions come in for Matt. Otherwise, we'll close the workshop, the webinar a little early.
So I did have a pre-seeded question in case somebody wanted me to get the juices going for them.
Well, go ahead.
Typically what folks will ask is specifically about challenging time zones. So, hey, we've got a team that's sort of 10 and a half hours away. So the things that you can do to really address that is, as much as the team can be wholly owned owners and operators in charge of whole features instead of parts of features, so that they can kind of collaborate while maybe it's off hours locally. Being flexible with your ceremonies. So the ideal stand-up is in the morning maybe, but maybe you have to do it at a different time to get everybody in the room together. The delivery teams and really lean story writing. So if you write a lean story and you have to have a delivery team conversation, so you make sure you're talking through the things and everybody understands before they kind of get going on it. Also helpful. Having a well-understood and well-published definition of done. What does it mean for your software to be done? What's involved? And how are you holding yourself and other teams accountable? Accepting early and often. Do not wait to the end of the sprint to do acceptance and talking to the product owner. You get that stuff accepted. For us, the story doesn't burn down until it's accepted. So it has to get, the product owner is the one that moves the burn down. And we try to accept, daily if we can. And then having the crucial conversations. If something's not working, if you're not getting the right feedback loops, the right channels, somebody's not performing well, you have to have the conversation, not be afraid of it, address it, and deal with it early on.
Okay, I have one question from Sam. He asks, what is the key differences between Latin American and Indian teams, sort of at a high level?
Oh, okay. I'm going to speak from my experiences, so I'm not an anthropologist by any means. But so for us, the Indian culture tends to be very, very hierarchical, and as far as like management structures and stuff like that. So you'll have the more senior people in the room leading conversations, and perhaps the junior people that have really good ideas, they tend to not surface them publicly because the thinking is, the senior person knows more, or maybe I wouldn't want to be considered rude or disrespectful. So understanding how to sort of have the conversation, surface all those ideas. Maybe you need to remove some of the management structure from conversations to be able to talk on a person level. That's a good way to address that. The Latin American culture, from what we found, was and I mean this in a very positive way, very challenging culture as far as challenging your ideas and what you want. So we really wanted a partner that if we said, hey, go build this thing, we think it's great. If it's a bad idea, we wanted the partner to say, I don't think that's good. I think that's bad, or you wanted somebody to sort of call BS, and we found that, like, especially when we partnering with Velocity, you found people that they understood what you wanted to do, and if your idea wasn't as good as something else that could be done, they were really okay with challenging that and challenging status quos and pushing back. And some of traditionally the Asian cultures, a lot of times, it's a little bit more maybe historically requirements driven. So it's, hey, here's this sheet, you want this thing, I built this thing exactly how you asked, and maybe it's the wrong thing, but it's exactly to a spec. So we talked a little bit about having the shared vision and the why, and helping teams understand here's why we're doing something, and coaching them through, thinking through those things and making suggestions and creating safe rooms or safe environments where anybody can say something and they're not judged and there's no stupid ideas kind of helps in that sense. Another sort of just basic thing, too, is time zone-wise, South America is usually plus or minus 1 hour time zone. India, you got 10 and a half hours difference, so there are some just general communication challenges, regardless of any kind of cultural differences around people sitting 10 hours away versus 1 hour away.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. We'll wait for a few more seconds just to see if there's any more questions coming in. If you were a coach, Matt, I'll ask one up. In fact, Jeff will beat me, so I won't ask that. Let me go to this one. What methodologies do you suggest using to share informal communication for teams that have both distributed and in-house team members? We tend to struggle always sharing informal communication with distributed members. So, okay. The informal in-house stuff doesn't really get shared offshore.
Yep. So we have, for us, working agreements. Like, we have a concept of working agreements, which is sort of similar to the definition of done, but it's how everybody behaves. And so we have a specific working agreement around this topic, which is it is your job to communicate all hallway conversations, which are sort of the informal communications. So if you have a hallway conversation, it is your responsibility to communicate it out to the right people. Some things that we do, we use HipChat, which is sort of an instant message client, but it has the concept of groups. So we have team rooms, and if there'll be a decision that, hey, I just talked to the DBA, and he said we need to change this feature flag, blah, 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 it's really easy to open up like the team room in HipChat, put that out there to everybody. You can even do like little mentions so people can kind of get notifications and stuff like that. So, putting something in the team room in HipChat. We do use a wiki. Each team has, a team page. Every feature we do has a definition of done that we publish on the wiki, and it has what we call a nutritional value, which is sort of the measurement criteria. So as anybody learns new information about the features, adding this stuff to the pages, communicating out, whether it's a summary email, each team has their own email alias as well. It's really, you just need to sort of understand how people best ingest your information. Like for where I sit, a lot of times me emailing something out is not effective. People get too many emails, they don't absorb the information. So knowing how best to get your point across will sort of help dictate that. But the team room stuff, the quick wiki updates, if people can even sign up, we use Confluence, you can sign up for page change notifications. So you can get a notification emailed to you saying so-and-so updated this page. But at the end of the day, it's working agreements. If you say, hey, it's important for us to share this information with the team, they need to do that. And if it doesn't happen, it's a retrospective topic. Hey, how did we not let them know this thing? What would have been the great opportunity to do that? Was it at a sprint planning? Was it something that you could have put in the team rooms on HipChat? Could you have emailed it out, et cetera? And then making an action item or a delta based off of that. So everybody sort of knows that it's their job to do that. It's not optional.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. I think that's all the questions. So what I want to do is I want to move on. I want to thank everyone for the questions. Here, if you do have some follow-up that you want to make, if there's something that you didn't get into play, I'm sure Matt would entertain a question or two via email. So here's his contact information, email, and then keep in touch with us as well. So feedback and requests for future webinar topics, we'd welcome that. We want to know what topics you'd like to hear from us. You can look and review our past topics and this one and use that as an indicator going forward. We've had some discussions this year already about what are our themes. Do we go back to basics with Scrum and Kanban and have more basic stuff, or do we go on to more advanced topics? So we'd really welcome hearing from you. You can request a video copy of the webinar, but I think the way we're going to set it up is there'll be a response from the webinar, and it can include video and slides. So I think you'll get an auto response from Brian. I'm not Brian Estep. He's listening in, but he's the person to reach out to with coaching inquiries or sales inquiries. And his contact, he's much more handsome than I am. That young man, his contact information is there. And then we really hope to see you at our next webinar. We're thinking of scheduling maybe February, March. Last year we did 4 webinars. This year we'll probably be in the realm of 4, maybe 5 at the most, every month and a half or 2 months or so. We've gotten great feedback from them. So I just want to thank Matt for taking the time. He did a great job. I think this is a relevant topic. And he not only did he do a great job here with the presentation, but I want to emphasize that Matt is one of those people that walks his talk. So he did this in the real world with real client relationships. So this wasn't ethereal discussion. This was what he did between Appia and Velocity Partners, and it worked out really, really well. And I think he shared with you some keys for having that same sort of synergy within your own distributed team. So Matt, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
And with that, I think we're going to say goodbye. So take care, everyone. Have a great day.